it's a possibility that we'd see an expansion of the football bracket from 28 to 32 teams, and that might happen by next fall.
Happy to be back again, joined by MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy to talk all things MIAA spring sports. Now that winter sports are behind us, now we're getting into the spring sports, and I say getting into, but we're already toward the end of spring sports, believe it or not, here in April. Sir, good to catch up with you as always.
Well, good to see you, and Chris, congratulations.
Thank you.
Recent marriage, and you look happy. You look different.
I don't look tired, or do I look more tired? Who knows which way we're going, right?
No, I know you've been busy planning a wedding and all of those fun things. But congratulations, I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you. It was a whirlwind, no pun intended on the rain and wind that we had the morning of the wedding, but it turned out to be a really nice day, really nice evening, and you never really think about how much work goes into that, and then you're like, oh, everything else for about a month beforehand you don't even remember doing. So yeah, it's a great thing, and we're ready to celebrate a little bit more here this summer when everything's a little bit calmer for us on my job and her job and everything else. But
Sure.
let's talk some spring sports here today as we're getting down to the end of that already, surprisingly. Just overall thoughts here as we're getting closer into either conference championships. I know some sports are already in their conference championships, but also some that have a few weeks left to go.
Yeah, well, we just wrapped up women's golf. UCM Jenny's won. I think that's 3 years in a row for them on the women's golf side. That was up in Kearney, Nebraska. Looked like I didn't make it up there, but Amber was there. Looked like sunshine, but maybe a cold day or two and some wind. But our golfers can handle that. And then the men's golf championship will be next week in Jeff City. Yeah, we're right in the middle of spring sports, Chris. Winter sports for the MIAA. What a great season for us. Two Final Four teams in basketball, men's and women's, with Washburn and Pitt State. Pitt State, men and women, won national titles again in indoor track. Nebraska Kearney won a national championship in wrestling. So the spring sports will got a lot to do to match that. But we feel good. We've got some teams in the top of the regional rankings in both baseball and softball. At this point, looks like Central Oklahoma is in line to host on the softball side. Central Missouri in line to host on the baseball side. And we've got some teams, obviously, that will compete for women's and men's tennis regional championships. So track and field, the Gorillas are ranked number one in the country and defending champs. So we'll hopefully have some trophies to add to the collection. But it's always a fun time of the year. It's been, it feels like when you're in the middle of it, it's a marathon. But here at the end, Chris, it feels like a sprint with all of these conference and regional championships coming up. For soccer, we'll be at Fort Hays State for the MIAA softball. I said soccer. Softball championship will be at Hays. Men's and women's indoor men's and women's outdoor track championship will be in Emporia, and then baseball will be in Joplin at Missouri Southern. So lots going to happen in the next couple of weeks. A lot of action. If you can't get there, catch all of it on the MIAA network. And yeah, hopefully we've got some teams that make a deep run towards the national titles.
It's always the interesting part where you have the teams that are supposed to be making deep runs, especially in baseball and softball, but then you always have a team or two that pulled off those upsets along the way. So that's always a fun part of the MIAA championships, regardless of what sport it is. But would switch gears a little bit here to honoring some former student athletes, and I'm sure some student athletes right now on some of these teams we just talked about, especially the indoor Pittsburgh State track teams, will maybe end up one day in the Hall of Fame as well. But the MIAA Hall of Fame class 2025, 10 former student athletes, one administrator going in the class of 2025 later this year in June. Quite the list of student athletes. You have football, wrestling, baseball, softball, basketball, just a bevy of sports is all along the way too.
Yeah, and it's always a great event, Chris, when we get together and we hand out a few awards, including honoring the new Hall of Fame class. So that happens every year in early June. This year, I think it's June 2nd, Monday evening, June 2nd. We'll be in a new venue this year. We'll be at the last few years we've been at the music hall right next to Municipal Auditorium in downtown Kansas City. They had a conflict with the show this summer, so we've moved this event to the theater inside the Nelson Atkins Museum near the Country Club Plaza. So I'm real excited that we've taken a visit there, and it's a really pretty venue, a really nice setup for us, and I'm excited about the evening. We've got Blair Kirchhoff, local Kansas City sports writer, Hall of Famer, that will be our MC, Master of Ceremonies that night. I think this is our 8th consecutive year having Blair do that for us. And you look at the names. Yeah, we've got some MIAA greats. We've got a couple of student athletes that made their mark or are making their mark in professional sports. John Brown, former Pittsburgh State national champion in football, and obviously had a great pro career. You've got Ryan Helsley from Northeastern State, great pitcher. Still doing well, really well at the major league level, and some administrator. You've got Kathy Anderson, who is a legend. She's in as a student athlete now. She'll go in as an administrator. It's a fun evening, a chance for us to catch up with these Hall of Famers, talk to them a little bit about what they're doing now. And Blair does a great job in the interview process that night to really make our Hall of Famers feel at home and reflect on success they've had and the important people in their life to help get them there.
I will add one thing. I'm not liking the fact that I went to school at the same time as some of these student athletes now. So we're getting to that point in my life where I'm like, oh, okay. I remember watching them play in college instead of being younger than the student athletes going to the Hall of Fame. So now I've reached that point in my life where now some of them are now younger or going to be younger than me going in. But, like you said, a great class. You look and sometimes I don't think people understand just how good and how great the MIAA is, just with the student athletes, administrators, coaches, you name it, athletic directors, just all the way through, that have come through an MIAA school and made an impact on the field, on the court, and everything like that too.
Yeah, and we're really fortunate. We've got people like Fog Allen, in our Hall of Fame, and one of the greatest basketball coaches ever in college basketball that got his start in Warrensburg. And when you're a conference like the MIAA that's been around for 115 years and has had a lot of success, we're gonna have a great Hall of Fame, and obviously the class that will be celebrating June 2nd will just add to that tradition and greatness for the MIAA.
Again, the 2025 Hall of Fame class for the MIAA, 10 former student athletes and one administrator, like you said, will go into the Hall of Fame on June 2nd, here in less than 2 months down there in Kansas City. Would switch gears to everybody's favorite topic all the time, NCAA future and the settlements and the debate. We're seeing college football and Division One level, just how far away from what we're used to seeing college football be to players transferring out, players being cut because of NIL deals. What is the update on the NCAA settlement part? Because there's a lot of layers to a lot of different things going on right now, especially Division One.
Yeah, I think the big theme that I'm hearing, Chris, is that the settlement's important to get this class action lawsuit resolved, and the settlement is set up with a pretty big payment to the class members, and then a structure for Division One sports moving forward that includes both a revenue cap, salary cap for actually compensating student athletes, and then also roster limitations. And that's those are available for schools that want to opt into that new structure, those new rules. But you don't have to. And I think the things that I hear people talking about is that this is not going to end the litigation. There's going to be Title IX lawsuits about how schools are spending that revenue share, and what sports are getting that money, or the most of that money. And that'll be tied up in litigation. There are going to be lawsuits related to the roster limits and caps, and the judge has already told the NCAA and the plaintiff's attorneys, go back and see if you can do some things about these roster limits, maybe grandfather them in, so you're not cutting student athletes and removing them from teams. And it's just going to continue to be a big mess unless there's some sort of congressional action. There needs to be some sort of a collective bargaining agreement, but the unknowns are, who are you negotiating with, what entity is out there representing all student athletes. It's going to be hard to have a collective bargaining agreement that's going to cover every sport, every level of Division One. So I'm not painting a rosy picture here, Chris, but I
Right.
do, there's a lot of this that has me worried about the future and what the future looks like in the NCAA for college athletics. And the thing I continue to really be concerned about is there's not a lot of activity of people having conversations, thinking about whether there's a different looking model, a different structure, a different way we're organized that makes more sense. I've said it on this show before. The three divisions that we have were built in the 1970s, and that was 50 years ago. And
Yeah.
the a lot has changed. A lot will continue to change. There are a lot of issues that need to be addressed by people from different divisions, with different interests, sitting in a room and talking about what would be an ideal structure and organization for the future of college sports. And whether that's all sports or football or basketball or volleyball or whatever. um, but that's not really happening. And that's my biggest concern, is that as a membership organization, we'll just continue to be reactive instead of proactive, and kind of figure this out as we need to, with pressure points from attorney generals and Congress and litigation, and other issues. And I think it's always better to try to have discussions about solutions and new things that we may want to implement when those pressure points aren't there. A little more clear objective, clear runway on trying to figure out what makes sense. So, but it's not it's an interesting time
Yeah.
in college sports, but it's certainly a challenging time, an unpredictable time, and one that's, I think, causing a lot of people a lot of anxiety about what does the future look like.
I think, and this one's probably getting the most headlines, is the Tennessee quarterback that
Right.
reports going back and forth. Was there more money asked for? Was it holding out? Why did the team let him go? That to me is maybe bigger than what it already is, because that goes back to that salary cap stuff. That goes back to all this stuff. Someone's going to take on whatever someone asks for at this point. It's about, whether we like it or not. Probably there's a lot of, you have to win. You have to win now, and if you can get a player and it's like going to cost you $4 million, someone's going to do it. So with that one, is that kind of almost looking at, okay, how far are people willing to go, and that's where that salary cap goes in. But then the back end of that, how do you stop that, or how do you contain that to like the salary cap issue? Because to me, that one is probably our first biggest example of a team walking away from arguably a really good probably player because of a money issue.
Yeah, and I think it highlights some of the big problems at that upper level of Division 1 football, basketball, a few other sports, and that's the advisors, the managers, the agents, the folks that are providing maybe some advice and counsel to these young people about what they should be doing, and they're those agents, those counselors, those advisors are trying to get paid as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they this one certainly seems, at least what I know, what you know, um, seems to be maybe a little bit of a strategic gamble that went wrong based on someone not getting the money they'd hoped for, and maybe not playing in as competitive a program as where they were in Tennessee. I think it speaks to, Chris, to some of the issues that we see going on in Division 2, and that's that we've got really good student athletes in the MIAA that are being recruited and being told by Division 1 coaches, hey, why don't you put your name into the transfer portal, because we'd love to have you on our roster, and we can obviously give you more NIL money, and things that absolutely are not the way the system is supposed to be working. Um, and it really calls into question the integrity of the transfer portal. And I think we see that being challenged at the D1 level. We've got I think it's a football player from Wisconsin that didn't even go into the transfer portal, but left and went to the University of Miami. And there's some litigation involving that. And, so, are we going to start to see more and more student athletes just not even, being part of the transfer portal, just going and leaving where they want to go whenever they want to go? Are
Right,
we going
like
to
free
see
agency. Yeah.
a mid-season transfer?
Yeah.
And it's becoming harder and harder, at least at the D1 level, to see the education academic connection to all of this. And I am proud that that's one of the things that we continue to hang on to, and to really champion as part of our identity in Division 2, that we continue to represent an education centered model for intercollegiate athletics. The entire purpose of our campuses offering intercollegiate athletics is to help young people earn a degree. And sports oftentimes brings young people for that pursuit of degree to your campus that maybe otherwise would be at a different school, including the student body. A lot of our MIAA campuses recognize that the students that are making decisions to go to Washburn or Central Missouri or Northwest or Emporia or wherever is because of the the student experience I'm going to have as part of going to games and being part of tailgating and basketballs on a Saturday afternoon or whatever. That's a big part of our campus identity. But it's all centered on education and academics and young people pursuing a degree. I feel like we've lost that a little bit with some of the things that we've just been talking about, Chris.
Well, let's get out of the doom and gloom maybe a little bit here, and we're still, I say still, we're about 5 months away, which will feel like 2 weeks, but 5 months away from the football season, call the Division II college football season and fall sports getting back and going. Football expansion, always a topic for everybody. What's it going to look like? But Division I is its own beast when it comes to that. But there's been some moves around Division II as well as the MIAA with football teams, you know, going independent, leaving the conference. So where it stands right now, where does the MIAA look at when it comes to football expansion?
Well, obviously, it's something that we've been championing for a few years. It was really a driving force for why the MIAA participated with a couple of other conferences to help create the Football Alliance. We felt that there were improvements that needed to be made in the sport for the regular season and the postseason, and that alliance has been successful. Chris, we sponsored legislation to allow schools to have a spring game against an opponent. We've seen that a couple of MIAA schools have taken advantage of that this spring. We felt that it was important to modify football that gave student athletes that were red shirts a chance to get into a couple of games during their freshman year and not use a season of eligibility to still have four to come back and play as they work toward their degree. We got that passed. We fought hard as the Football Alliance for week 0 and providing not only greater flexibility for our schools in scheduling, but to be the last division to actually build in a bye week in the grueling football schedule for our student athletes to have a week off at some point during the year. And now, it looks like we'll know more in a couple of weeks once the Division II President's Council, or I guess they're called the Executive Board, meets. But it's a possibility that we'd see an expansion of the football bracket from 28 to 32 teams, and that might happen by next fall. We could see that implemented uh, here in the fall as the MIAA and other conferences move into new super region alignments. As a reminder, we will no longer be with the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, or the GLIAC, as a part of our super region. We'll be in a super region now with the Lone Star Conference, the RMAC, the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, and the Great American Conference, or the GAC. Those are our three conference opponents, and still a very competitive region. Super region will be a part of, but expanding that bracket from 28 to 32 and giving those four conferences 8 bids into the football playoff is better than 7. So I'm very hopeful that happens, and feel good that the Football Alliance played some small role in continuing to talk about expansion and bracket expansion and growth that's occurred in football, and why we need to continue to improve our Division II football postseason.
How big can just adding 4 teams be? I know the regions are still what they are a lot of times, or there'll be probably some teams on the outside looking in because of the regionalization, but adding those teams, because we've seen it before. If one team in the MIAA a few years would lose 1 game or 2 games, they were done because you had so many good teams in a region. How much can adding that one team to making it 8 by 4 um, help everything too?
Yeah, well, I would hope. I mean, never any guarantees, but I would hope that with 8 teams now for each region, that the MIAA would always, have some, uh, some opportunity to feel good that our champion and one other team would for sure be pretty easy selections into that bracket, and then maybe one other team out of our conference that's right there in the week 10, week 11, week 12, right in the hunt for that last spot. So I would hope that going to 8 gives us some relief in thinking we've got two each year, and then maybe battling for a third based on how competitive our teams are in the regular season. But we've seen some good MIAA schools that have been left out of the playoffs in a 6 team region or a 7 team regional bracket. So an 8 team regional bracket, it's not going to remove all the controversy, but it will certainly help, Chris.
We'll have to wait and see what the Division II President's Executive Board comes up with that one. Like you said, it could be as soon as this fall that we'll see 32 teams making the postseason in Division II college football. But Commissioner Mike Racy, thank you for the time as always. Appreciate it. And next time we talk, I'm sure we'll be right around in the heart of MIAA championships and regionals and everything like that too.
If all of that's over, you're gonna see me sitting by the pool with a soft drink in my hand. So we'll do a poolside chat too if it's after our
And
championship.
we won't know where you are. It'll be
Absolutely,
some place unknown, right? Where we'll say, I
exactly.
don't know
Yeah,
where I am. So, all right, Commissioner Racy, thank you for the time as always.
you bet. Good to see you, Chris. Thank
See
you.
ya.